The difference between the right word and the almost right word is the difference between lightning and the lightning bug. This quote by Mark Twain sums up the editing process perfectly. The right word choice has everything to do with an impactful speech. So stay tuned today on Moxie Talk. I am going to unpack how to edit your speech. Hi everyone, I'm Thea Fastbinder and welcome to Moxie Talk, where we help you find your voice, share your message, and lead with confidence. Today I will be talking about the R in the POWER method of effective speech writing, which stands for R equals revise. But before I do that, if you are watching me on YouTube, please make sure to hit that alert button so you get notified anytime I put out new content. And if you like this video, please make sure to share it, like it, and subscribe to our channel. There's a saying in the speaking world that the best speeches are not written, they're rewritten. Yet most speakers present content that falls somewhere between a first draft and no preparation at all. I'm here to urge you in this video to not be like most speakers. Allow yourself the time to edit your speech. If you do, you'll give your audience a speech that will engage them and inform them and hopefully keep them listening from start to finish. Look, good speech writing looks easy, but it's not. It takes practice and it requires a lot of time, energy, and effort. So the first thing I recommend to clients once they've finished their rough draft is to ask themselves, is this speech something I'm confident sharing with an audience? If the answer is no, why not, and what isn't working in your speech? What do you need to change so that you want to give this talk? Are you too stuck in the weeds? Maybe your speech goes too wide instead of deep on a particular idea. Maybe it just needs to be personalized with some stories or anecdotes. There are so many reasons why you may feel unconfident sharing your speech. But if any of those reasons have to do with the editing process, now is your chance to move from dread to excitement about this upcoming speaking opportunity. So the first concept to grasp when you're revising your speech is that editing a speech is an iterative process. It is not a one and done. I'm sorry to tell you, I wish I could, but once you have a first draft, you begin to see how the different elements from your outline work together to form your speech. The next step is a highly iterative one. Just as you can't expect the first draft to be the final draft, don't pressure yourself to get it perfect after one editing session. You should expect to make as many passes through your speech as it takes to get it right, with each pass leaving the speech a little better than the previous version. Writing a speech with a clear message requires the writer to explore an idea, decide which option will best express the idea, and eliminate anything that's not necessary. This is an iterative process. The second concept to understand if you are going to spend some time editing your speech is that less is more. Most presentations try to include too much. We really want to leave your audience wanting more. Nobody wants to give a speech where the audience is like, oh my gosh, when are they going to finish? One of my favorite quotes about the length of your speech comes from my good friend Winston Churchill, who said, "A good speech is like a woman's skirt, long enough to cover the subject and short enough to create interest." Now, this is entirely true. As you proceed, avoid falling in love with any particular component of your speech. Maybe you have the perfect story or a great slide, but be prepared to cut it if it doesn't go into your core message, or it can be conveyed in a better way. The editing phase really requires you to edit mercilessly. Every element of your speech, every point, every statistic, every anecdote, every story, every joke, every visual aid must support your main idea. Sometimes I describe this as your main idea is like the tree trunk, and all the branches are everything leading into it. At Moxie, we call this part of the editing process murdering your darlings. And don't be afraid to do it. There is nothing worse than a speech that is all over the place. You want to make sure, just like a good TED Talk, there is one main idea and everything supports this idea. The third concept with editing is that there are two major steps to the editing process. You are going to edit using binoculars or macro editing, and edit using a magnifying glass or micro editing. So you're looking at your speech through two different lenses, and you're doing this in parallel while you're editing. When you are editing using binoculars, you're macro editing, or looking at your speech from a high level or big picture lens, you want to ensure that your paragraphs, your sections, your stories, your transitions all combine to produce a well-organized speech that succeeds in delivering your core message or main idea. Look at the flow of your speech. Review your hook, your closing, your call to action. You only have one chance to deliver your message to your audience. It needs to be easy to follow and impactful to guarantee their attention throughout. If you're looking for more ideas for macro editing, I suggest you go back and re-watch my video on O equals organize your ideas to make sure you've reviewed and edited each step on that audience journey map. The second step in your editing process is to edit using a magnifying glass or micro editing. Now, micro editing requires you to go granular and look at every detail of your speech. With micro editing, you want to look at your word choice, your phrases, your sentences to find the precise combination that informs the audience, evokes emotion, and sticks in the audience's mind in a memorable way. To make sure your audience remembers your core message, you need to do some serious micro editing. That being said, remember that you want to write a speech that sounds like you. So while you're going through this editing process, pay attention to the words you're choosing and make sure they sound like something you would say and not the college essay you wrote in your English Lit class. The fourth and final concept in editing is to edit on your feet. What does this mean? It means to read your speech aloud and make changes to it based on what you hear. I have a lot of clients who will ask me about the best way to edit their speech or presentation, and I always say the same thing: read it aloud. In my previous video, I unpacked how to write for the ear, meaning your presentation, and not the eye, meaning a report. So by now you've probably familiarized yourself with the way to write for these very different mediums. Editing a presentation is no different than writing a presentation. You read it aloud so you know what it really sounds like, since you'll obviously be presenting it aloud, unless you're writing for a mime or a silent movie. So if you really want to hear what your audience will hear in order to edit it, read it aloud. Better yet, have somebody else read it aloud to you. Did it sound natural and conversational, or stiff and complicated? Did the person reading it to you or sitting next to you understand it immediately, or did you have to explain and simplify ideas? Now, I realize you may feel silly at first, but there is no better exercise for editing quickly and efficiently than editing on your feet. Writing a speech with a clear message requires the writer to explore an idea, decide which options will best express that idea, and eliminate anything that isn't truly necessary. This requires you as the speechwriter to muster up some courage and master the editing process. So the next time you are preparing for an upcoming speech or presentation, think about how you can level up and use some pro editing tips to create a speech that's sure to make everyone in the room lean forward and listen. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found it valuable, please make sure to like it, share it, subscribe to our channel, and check out moxieinstitute.com for more information on what we do here at Moxie. Until next time, make sure to lead boldly, live brilliantly, and speak with Moxie.